When I was 10 years old, I remember my dad saying, "Today's the day the bank's closed." That didn't mean much to me. During that time, I would have to say after the war, it was more evened out. Tough going for a while.
Yeah.
But we came out on top eventually. That was right in Depression, and I didn't go to high school. I had an older brother that had polio, and they sent him to school, but that was a failure because he wouldn't do anything. I had 5 brothers. I had 3 older brothers. And I was the oldest one of the last half. We had good parents. We always had plenty to eat. Maybe it wasn't always fancy, but always plenty. Yeah, I remember the first car my dad had. Model T. No, he'd been a veterinarian since he was a young man.
Okay.
He used to be at Fremont, and I guess he didn't check into what he was doing. He sold it, and he thought he could stay there and still practice. But you can't do that. He sold his business, that's what it was. He went to Kansas City Veterinary College. Well, he came from a large family. There was 2 MDs, and 1 mining engineer, and 2 or 3 registered nurses. They all paid their own way through school. They were right over here on 76th Street, where I was born. They got my dad to buy the old place, and after he'd sold his business up there. So he farmed for a while, till my older brothers got big enough to farm, and then the veterinarian in Caledonia passed away, and he started it again. And they told me during the first part of World War II, veterinarians were pretty scarce. He used to make calls for 40 miles in distance. When he got older, I was the guy who got helping him on the tough jobs. Yeah, I had 3 horses on the corn binder. I was cutting corn for my father-in-law. He never gave up, but he had a trouble. His knees bothered him a lot. He'd be walking along and plump there he laid. He'd fall down just like that. But all those years, he never got hurt. He'd get back up and go again. But to cut that corn, that was a real big task for him. So I had these 3 horses, and they was pretty heavy on their necks, so when I'd rest a little bit, I'd always put the old binder on the ground and take the weight off their neck. And the flies were bad, and this one got his bridle caught, and he got scared, I guess, and here they go. Across the field, and that old binder hit a little hump and busted the tongue off. The older horse landed up flat on his back in a ditch about this wide. We had to get a shovel to get him out. The horses didn't get hurt, tore the harness up a little bit. I got everything fixed up, went to the sawmill and got a new tongue, sawed out, fixed her all up. And I went back to cutting corn, and Dad said, "You never should have done that. He'll run away with you again." I said, I doubt it. I didn't tell him what I'd done. On his, I had a straight bit. I took it and wound that with baling wire. I was always told that was very nasty, and it is. He didn't run away. 18, 19, 20. About that, in their age there, somewhere there, 18 or 19. Her folks lost their farm during the Depression, and they moved in next to my folks. And I thought she's a pretty nice gal. And eventually, we liked one another. You know how that goes? And she said, there's something, she said, years and years after that, she'd say that once in a while. It was that ride on the Ferris wheel. I never forgot that one. Yeah, they was going to draft me, and I didn't think I wanted to be a soldier. That's how come I got in the Navy. It was before, 1st of July, before Pearl Harbor. Corpus Christi Naval Air Station. That was a new station at that time. They were still expanding when I went there. And she came down to see me, and we got married, and she lived down there for a while till I had to go overseas. For my first job is to work a flight line. Keep these planes ready to fly. You know, when they land, the first thing you do is fill them with gas. And then when the next flight goes out, maybe an hour later, you got to start them up, get them warmed up. Get out there and signal your man out onto the taxiway, and he was gone for an hour or so. They were small. They were fabric-covered planes to start with. And later we got into the heavier all metal. They called off a bunch of names one morning and said, put your gear on this truck, and we went on the other side of the island to Kaneohe Naval Air Station. At Pearl Harbor, I expected to go on south. That's when it was really hot on the South Pacific. And I didn't know it at that time, but that was headquarters for Fleet Air Wing 2 and under the command of an admiral. And nobody transferred out of there. Yeah. What I had to do was maintain one plane that pulled targets for the pilots that were going south. And if they didn't have any targets to pull, guess it, I didn't have much to do. Although, you know, you heard about sleeping in hammocks.
Yes.
I did that.
Did you?
In boot camp, yeah. There were some that was up 4 feet and some of them 8 feet. And one night, somebody on that 8-foot one fell out, and boy, I'm telling you, he landed hard.
Oh, wow.
You soon learn to lay still in that thing, because it goes like that and dump you out.
Yeah.
I was working in a trailer shop at that time in the northwest side of Grand Rapids. Trailmobile, they were a new shop that just moved into Grand Rapids. At one time, they got me rebuilding, or cutting them in two, really, and putting 8-foot in them. This was, I forget the name of the outfit, was hauling from Greenville. They had a plant up, refrigerator plant up there, and bulky stuff, and they needed longer trailers because it wasn't the weight that was bothering them, it was the space, see? So I got the job, and I done it, most of it alone. Other people done whatever, come into the shop, but I was working on this old trailer. I loved that. That's where I learned to weld, and who taught me? Well, that was kind of funny. They had 2 Lincoln welders, or good ones, and only one man to run them. So while I'd be fooling around waiting for him, I would see where he had his set for heat and what size rod he was using and like that. And pretty soon I tried it myself. Yeah, it wasn't so bad. That's the way I got going. My foreman told me he came from Fruhoff. He was a foreman over there. He said, you're the only man I ever had that could weld that light roughing. So that made me feel pretty good. My brother and I started a shop there. There wasn't no blacksmith in there anymore in Caledonia. There used to be 3 of them there when I was a kid, but there wasn't nobody there. And my work was repairing farm machinery mostly. And plow points, at that time they used the standard point like they did for years. And if it got wore bad, they'd chop that off and put on a replacement point. It was about this long. And there's a company down South Division sold blacksmith supplies. And they, of course, sold them. And he told me, you're the only man in West Michigan that buys them by the keg. So, so most people buy a dozen at a time. So you know how many I've done. I don't. I wish I knew. In all them years, I never had one break off that I know of. I had one come back one time and turned right around backwards, got hooked on a rock, and after it got wore thin, and it turned around, but it didn't break off. After that, I got into steel case. After the government come along and said they had a surplus. That's what they told the farmers, and they'd pay them to let the land lay idle. And a lot of farmers did, and I was out of a job. So I ended up at steel case.
And what did you do there?
Same line of work, repair work.
Oh, yeah.
But I done well. And out of that whole department, in the chair part of the steel case, I had the top day rate.
Good.
I must have done something right. My wife's brother Jake there, he loved to play setback, and we played a lot of it.
Oh, yeah.
Mostly setback.
Yeah.
He'd come once a week and we'd play setback. They moved in next door, like I said.
Yeah.
And he worked at General Motors, and after we moved up there on that little farm, and we got to farming together a little bit. Well, I tried to raise a little corn and alfalfa. And that's real light soil, but if you do it right, you can do pretty well. Alfalfa will bring your soil back. I know you bought that little farm, and that was stony as the dickens up there. Oh man, it was stony. Stone piles all over.
Yeah.
And I sold a lot of rocks.
You're a good man.
Somebody said one day, you ought to sell them. So my brother kind of took up sign painting. So he painted me a sign I stuck up by the road. And one day I got a bite, and that's the way it went.
Yeah.
And pretty soon I had landscapers come, and I gave them a cheap price compared to what they had paid for rocks from a dealer.
Oh, yeah.
And everybody was happy, and I was too. Believe it, I got to going fishing with Jake. My dad never went fishing. And that's the way I got into fishing. Bluegills mostly. She could fry them to perfection, boy. She knew just exactly how to do it. You know what creamed herring is? I got some in my refrigerator right now. They fried out those pork chops, put them in a crock, and melted lard and poured over. And that's the way they kept them.
No kidding.
In the summertime, they dig them out of that lard, fry them a little bit, warm them up good. In the wintertime, as long as it was cold, we'd leave it hanging out in the shed, and we could have fresh beef. But she always canned a lot for the summer. Canned beef today is really a treat. Oh, roast duck was one. Common old potatoes and beef steak or roast beef and beans and lots of vegetables and baked bread all the time. Oh, I don't know just how to describe that. I guess it just dawned on me one day that there's something better than what I've been doing. My wife belonged at that church in Dutton, and so that's where I went. And I was there 50 years. After church, there's a certain group of old guys that always gather in the corner there. And somebody made a nice little sign, hung it up where this is Cliff's Corner. That's me.
Yeah.
But anyway, they all evaporated. They passed away. And one day, what was left, they was accusing me of being henpecked. I said, listen, you old roosters, she's a peach. I was talking about my wife. I said, she's a peach. And I never heard her sound.
Good for you.
But Pastor Scully really cracked up on that one. I lived a happy life.
You had fun.
Not only me, but the rest of the family too. My wife and I, we lived a happy life together. Well, just an honest old gentleman, I guess.